Good day, everyone. Welcome to Valenzuela Live Science 8. This is the 7th week of our virtual learning, and I will be your guide in exploring today's lesson. By the way, I'm Mr. Arvin C. Austria from Valenzuela National High School. Hopefully, you are in a comfortable spot at your home so that you can get the most of our lesson for today. I want you to sit back, relax, and most importantly, learn. Before we move to today's lesson, let us first have a glimpse of the lesson you had last week. This is to ensure that the learnings you had stays with you. Answer the following questions by tapping on the react button that correspond to your answer after I read the questions. I will read the questions and options once. You are given 5 seconds to decide. After the time limit, the correct answer will show up. Question number 1. How much energy is lost when moving to the next trophic level in the energy pyramid? Like 60%, heart 70%, haha 80%, and wow 90%. Time starts now. The correct answer is 90%. The following are consumers. Which of these consumes both flesh and plants as part of their diet? Is it carnivore, herbivore, insectivore, omnivore? 5 seconds. The correct answer is omnivore. Which ecosystem is not considered as an example of high biodiversity? Is it coral reef, desert, rainforest, tropical lake? 5 seconds. The correct answer is desert. Remember that the more water source in an ecosystem, the more varied species will be. In the case of the desert, it had the least amount of water supply, so among the given options. Question number 4. What is the role of an algae in the ecosystem? Consumer, decomposer, producer, scavenger? 5 seconds. The correct answer is producer. What kind of biodiversity or diversity is characterized by a large variety of organisms in its environment? Is it ecosystem diversity, genetic diversity, species diversity, low diversity? 5 seconds. The correct answer is species diversity. Since it was just a review of the previous topic, you are expected to get 4 or 5 correct answers from the questions. It seems that the majority reacted with the correct answer. This means that you are more than ready for today's lesson. Who is this cartoon character? Correct. He is SpongeBob SquarePants. Many of you loves that cartoon, and I personally like it too. So, let me see if you know where these characters from SpongeBob lives. I will show you the image of the character, and after 5 seconds, you will give me the answers through the assigned reaction buttons. Let's begin. Can you guess where SpongeBob lives? Is it like, heart, or wow? 5 seconds. The correct answer is wow. He lives in a pineapple under the sea. How about Patrick? Do you know where he lives? Is it like, heart, or wow? 5 seconds. The correct answer is like. He lives under a rock, and somehow this is scientifically correct. For our last character, we have Sandy Cheeks, a squirrel. Do you know where he lives or where she lives? Is it like, heart, or wow? 5 seconds. The correct answer is heart. She lives under the sea in a dome. Her home was an amazing idea because it uses scientific principles, even though it is a cartoon. This proves that science is everywhere. Well, who knows that in the future, her home will be possible for us to imitate. But there's one thing is for sure. Sandy wears a safety suit to keep herself alive under the sea, based from the cartoon. But in real life, we also have a person who wanted to live worry-free and safe from COVID-19. So he built himself a closed terrarium helmet, and the internet went wild and amazed about his idea. But one thing is for sure, that this will be the new normal if we don't change our ways of treating our home plant. In relation with the man wearing a terrarium, today's lesson will be all about cycling of materials in the ecosystem. For us to be guided on what to learn in this lesson, here is our milk and objectives. Analyze the role of organisms in the cycling of materials. Explain how essential gases are cycled in a balanced ecosystem. Identify the process involved during exchange of essential gases between living things in an ecosystem. Involvement of organisms in biogeochemical cycle. This is David Latimer, the owner of the half-century sealed terrarium. Yes, you heard it right. This terrarium has been closed for more than 50 years and watered only once in 1960. Making a terrarium is actually a common hobby. But what keeps it amazing is that its ability to sustain life in it. What do you think is the secret? The secret is cycling of nutrients. It is actually the give and take relationship among its components that makes this possible. A terrarium is made of soil, plants, and tiny animals. What are the substances needed to keep the closed terrarium from functioning? The same substances are essential for an ecosystem to survive. We can say that our planet is like a huge terrarium, since Earth is the only planet that can support life in the solar system or in the universe. In this lesson, I will discuss the highlighted substances, how they are being cycled. Nutrient cycles are inclusive of both living and non-living components and involve biological, geological, and chemical processes. For this reason, these nutrient circuits are known as biogeochemical cycles. Here are the three cycles that we are going to be familiar with, namely water cycle, nitrogen cycle, and oxygen-carbon dioxide cycle. Starting with water cycle. For us to totally appreciate it, here is the importance of water. It links and maintains all ecosystem in the planet. It is the lifeblood of the community. The main function of water is to enhance the plant growth, provide permanent dwelling for species that live within it, or provide a temporary shelter or home or breeding ground for multiple amphibians, insects, and water-birthed organisms, and to provide nutrients and minerals necessary to sustain life. This is water cycle. Remember that a cycle has no definite beginning or end. But for this lesson, I will start with evaporation and transpiration. Water on the surface of the planet evaporates with the help of the sun to reach its boiling point. Another source of water vapor is plants. They can release the water they absorb with the help of their roots and exit through the pores of their leaves. This is the reason why rainforests have regular local precipitation. Water vapor rises and cools down, then changes its phase from gas to liquid and called condensation. Clouds in the sky is the evidence of condensation in the atmosphere. When these droplets get too heavy to stay suspended in the cloud, they fall on Earth as rain. snow, sleet, or hail, depending on the location. Water falling from clouds in any form is called precipitation. Lastly, water that fell on the surface of the earth returns to the bodies of water or go underground. The cycle repeats as long as there is a change in phase caused by cooling and heating of water. In this cycle of material, we can say that the key player here is the sun. Without it, evaporation will not happen. There is 21% of oxygen in the atmosphere, and it is being recycled with the help of both plants and animals. This diagram will show us the exchange of gases between plants and animals. Let's take a look at the plants. These organisms are autotrophs, meaning they can make their own food in the process by which we call photosynthesis. A part of their food-making process is also the production of oxygen. But this is not an essential gas for plants. We can summarize photosynthesis through this equation where glucose and oxygen were the end products. The oxygen produced by plants and others go to the atmosphere and are being used by animals. Animals need oxygen to survive because it is one of the things needed for cellular respiration, which is known to be the process by which cells convert fuel or food into energy and nutrients. This equation summarizes cellular respiration. Here are the products of cellular respiration. Carbon dioxide as waste that we exhale, water that we produce as sweat or urine, and ATP or adenosine triphosphate as our energy currency. All of our activities need ATP. That is why we must eat food with the right amount of nutrients. Take note that carbon dioxide is a waste and will be bad for us if inhaled in high concentrations. These carbon dioxide will be used by plants as raw materials for photosynthesis. This cycle will continue as long as there is a good balance between plants and animals. Isn't it amazing that plants and animals can give and take? This is an example of mutualism. They or we need each other for our survival. That is why we must plant more trees for more free oxygen. The last cycling of material is called nitrogen cycle. It is actually a friend and a foe for plants because too much of this element poisons the plant that leads to the discoloration of their leaves. Nitrogen is the most abundant gas in the atmosphere, 78% to be exact. Aside from those, here are some of the importance of nitrogen. It is an essential material for amino acid and protein synthesis for our muscles, essential for making nucleotides and nucleic acid. It is a major component of chlorophyll by which plant use to convert sunlight energy to produce sugars. Lastly, nitrogen is a component of ATP or energy transfer compound called as adenosine triphosphate. As mentioned earlier, that nitrogen is needed by plants for their survival. But gaseous nitrogen can be utilized by plants. It has to be converted with the help of bacteria. You heard it right, bacteria. Our first impression with bacteria is that they are dirty and only causes illness. Well, this idea is wrong. In fact, there is more good bacteria than bad ones in our body. This is nitrogen cycle, the most complex among the three cycles discussed today, because it involves a lot of processes. But this cycling of material will make us appreciate the roles played by abiotic and biotic components of the ecosystem. In this slide, I will show you the simplified version of nitrogen cycle. Let's begin with nitrogen in the atmosphere. This is the source of nitrogen that will be cycled in the ecosystem. Plants and animals both need nitrogen, But again, they cannot make use of it in its gas state. It has to be converted into absorbable form like ammonia or H3. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria in the roots of leguminous plants does the job of converting the nitrogen to ammonia, called nitrogen fixation. At times, lightning helps in nitrogen fixation in converting nitrogen to nitrates. Plants are now ready to make use of ammonia for its life functions through its metabolic processes. Animals, on the other hand, have to consume plants to obtain the organic nitrogen for their life functions too. The process of absorption of nitrogen, organic nitrogen, is called nitrogen assimilation. Animals will excrete metabolic waste and die in the long run. Through this process, nitrogen is returned to the soil. Organic nitrogen is converted into ammonia. Saprophytes like fungus and bacteria are responsible for this process. Nitrification is the conversion of ammonia into nitrites and nitrites to nitrates. This conversion is performed by nitrifying bacteria. Lastly, denitrification, performed by denitrifying bacteria. In this process, nitrate is converted to nitric oxide, then to nitrogen. The nitrogen returns to the atmosphere to sustain the equilibrium because too much nitrogen in the soil causes poisoning of the land and other undesirable effects. Did you pay attention to our lesson for today? I hope that you gave your 100% attention to our discussion. Now, to check if you learned something from the lesson, allow me to test yourself. Identify the cycle of material being described in each item. To answer, just click on the React button that corresponds with the event in the cycle of material in the ecosystem. Tap Heart for water cycle, like for oxygen, and wow for nitrogen cycle. I will read the statement or the sentence. Then 5 seconds is given for you to think, and after that, you may click on your chosen reaction. Number 1, it needs the help of bacteria to convert unusable gas to usable one for both plants and animals. 5 seconds. The correct answer is nitrogen cycle. Number 2, it involves 3 physical changes, namely evaporation, condensation, and freezing, for this cycle to be made possible. 5 seconds. The correct answer is water cycle. Third, lightning also plays a role in converting the unusable gas into nitrate. 5 seconds. The correct answer is nitrogen cycle. 4, plants give off usable gas as product of photosynthesis. Then the animals make use of this as raw material for cellular respiration. 5 seconds. The correct answer is oxygen carbon dioxide cycle. Last one, number 5. Plants also take part in this cycle by the process called transpiration. 5 seconds. The correct answer is water cycle. I hope that you got good scores from our drill. If not, it is highly suggested to attend your follow-up session tomorrow, courtesy of your respective teachers in Science 8. Let us now sum up today's learnings. Here are the 5 important points. 1. Recycling of materials in the ecosystem is essential to sustain life. Second, the recycling of materials in the ecosystem is called biogeochemical cycle because it involves living and non-living components together with geological and chemical processes. The three biogeochemical processes in the ecosystem are water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen cycle. It is our responsibility as humans to keep these cycles from continuing. Lastly, biotic and abiotic components in the ecosystem are important role players in sustaining these cycles. I hope that you learned or realized something today. Feel free to share it in the comment section or write it in the form that I'm about to show you. Do you want to show your teacher how much you have learned today? Well, scan or go to the link for you to answer a 10-item multiple choice questions related with today's lesson. After answering the questions, take a screenshot of the form and send it to him or her as a part of your presentation. The link will close on Thursday at exactly at 6 p.m. You can view the QR code and the link in the replay in case you missed it. Here is a friendly reminder for you learners to avoid cramming and staying up late in finishing your module special. I know you are familiar with him. He simplifies life hacks to very simple and common ways. Here is his tip. Read and answer your modules the moment you have received them. Then, do the necessary corrections after gaining realizations from Valenzuela Live. It is time for our Q&A. In this portion, I will answer questions posted by learners related with today's topic. I have a question here. So here's a question from Precious Athena Quizon of Valenzuela National High School. Her question goes, what is the most important cycle in the ecosystem? My answer will be all of them. If one material cycle stops, the whole ecosystem will collapse. But if you want to terraform, or if we will terraform a planet like Mars, we should start with water cycle. Our next question is still from Valna. This time it's from Marian A. Severian. So her question, does the change of season affect water cycle? My take on this will be yes. If change in season is caused by the period of exposure of a surface of Earth to the sun, this also affects the evaporation of water. The longer exposure to the sun, the more water evaporates, while the shorter exposure to the sun, the less water evaporates. Aside from those, there are other factors to consider if the change in season affects water cycle. Those were interesting questions coming from you. Keep those questions coming to spark your interest with science. We already fed our minds with the information essential for our living. This time, let's have our food for the heart. A parent's life is a cycle. As their child, you can make a difference in their day. Here are some of the ways to change your parent or guardian's typical day to a special one. You can help them cook meals even without them asking for your help. Sending them a text message to always take care at work or in their way home. Telling them what happened to you today or in school during meal or family time. There are more simple ways to make their day special. With these simple thoughts, you can make their day different from one another. I would like to thank the references and resources I used. Without them, this video lesson will not be made possible. Once again, I'm Teacher Arvin. See you in our next Balay.